In order, if we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason.
Present.
Trustee Reinders.
Present.
Trustee McNaughton. Trustee Consolino. Trustee Fialco. Trustee Stylen.
Present.
Mayor Knightsky-Troicki.
Present. Next is community recognition. I don't believe we have any. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to move O1 up after public comment.
Do we need a second for that?
Yes.
Is there is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Is that it? Is that all the amendments to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is public comment. I ask that you please keep all your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Walters.
Hello, everybody. I just had a prayer for us to say here. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Father in heaven, we pause this evening and we look to you. Fan the flame within us, Lord. Bring life to the gifts that you've imparted to us. Open your eyes to see the evidences of your glory everywhere we turn. Put faith in our hearts to step out and to be a necessary miracle in somebody's life today. And as we wait for our own personal breakthroughs, work through us to help someone else break through to their next place of promise. We love you, Lord. We need you every hour. We have you in every moment and every hour. We are abundantly blessed. Amen. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Joe Therese.
Good evening. I'm Joe Therese, 13956 Christina Lane. The reason I'm coming is I wanted to reinforce the importance of the BP pipeline subcommittee that Mayor Christine, that you proposed, and that Margaret Szabo, Precinct Captain Dave Buckley, and resident John McGee would be part of this subcommittee. The reason I feel it's so important is through the years, we live in a large lot, many trees, forested area, and the trees have been cut down repeatedly each and every year. People stop me and they say, hey, Joe, you're on the Environment Committee, can't you stop it? And I tell them, no, I can't do anything. Our present tree ordinance covers 5 acres or larger. And this is like 1% of Homer Glen. It covers nothing. I mean, if you want to do something, change the ordinance and let the people start trusting in this village so that they can feel that their trees are going to be protected. You know, I'm a tree lover, make it all buildable lots. Then it covers 100% of Homer Glen, not just 1%. So I urge this board to, at one of the more coming up meetings, change the tree ordinance so it starts covering the trees in Homer Glen, and let the residents start trusting in you again. Another thing, I'll bring you, this actually happened to me this past Sunday. I was walking my dog Sunday morning on 139th Street and coming in the opposite direction as a resident. And he comes over by me, and sometimes I think I have Environment Committee member tattooed on my forehead because he wanted to know about what's happening with the BP pipeline, and he hears all the trees are going to be cut down. And I said, well, I tried to explain it to him, and this resident lives on Janice
30 seconds.
Drive. Excuse me? Oh, could I have an extension, please? I'd be almost done.
Is there a motion to give Mr.
I'll make
Torres
that
an
motion.
additional 3 minutes? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee
Thank you.
Zak, continue. Or all in favor? Aye.
Thank you. So this resident lives on Janice Drive. He lives on the north end. His property backs up into Long Run Creek. So he's just down street from Mr. McGee's property. And he's concerned that if they cut down the trees, there's going to be flooding and it'll impact him. So far, he's been living there over 20 years and he's never been flooded, but his next door neighbor has been flooded repeatedly. So what do we do? You know, how do we help this guy if they cut down the trees and he's flooded? What's the answer? I mean, in the past, we tried to help other people with Long Run Creek. We notified the Army Corps of Engineers, the Illinois Environmental Association, AP Association, the Will County, our own building department. Nobody's there to help them. Who's going to help them? I read that BP made a record $22 billion profit last year. Maybe we should ask them at the subcommittee meetings if they'd be willing to cover the cost of flood damage to our residents should they if the flooding gets worse or they've never been flooded and they are flooded now. You know, will BP cover that if they cut down those trees? So that's we're trying to say that why it's so important to have members on this committee that I know Margaret, I've served with Margaret on the Environment Committee. She holds her course. She's not going to buckle under any pressure from BP. And yeah, I trust people that I know that will do the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike McGee?
Hello, Mike McGee, 13601 Longview Drive. And thank you, Joe. I want to also say regarding what Joe said, I was also selected tentatively for the subcommittee to the Environmental Committee. And my request is that we continue to do this. I understand that we're that the village is under negotiation with BP. Residents fear, and I'm not the only one, I'm representing several other property owners that have BP easements on their property. We fear that we're not being represented correctly in this because, so for example, Mr. Buckley interpreted the environmental outcome of possible clear cutting, and that's especially north of 139th. Any clear cutting of those BP easements will cause erosion and flooding of Long Run Creek. So residents are looking for protection by the state of Illinois. So, and that could be triggered and mitigate this erosion if you would consider, if the village would consider that the word maintenance is not used when trying to get a site permit. Instead of saying, we understand that a forest that's 300 years old that has not been ever touched by any clear cutting, by BP, by Standard Oil in 1946, none of them have affected our area, right? So Mr. Westcott believes that this is maintenance. And of course, the utilities companies use that word to avoid triggers for floodplain and wetland delineation and also checking the area for endangered species. So this is just a short circuit for utilities to get by these requirements by the state. And I'm afraid that Mr. Westcott is allowing this. So what happens when we look past this, we don't get a site development permit, and erosion occurs, all right, thank you. Erosion occurs, and the Long Run Creek floods. Mr. Westcott, what are you going to pay us?
Sir, you have
for
to
the-
direct your comments to me. I'm
All right.
sorry. They're the
Will
board.
Mr. Westcott pay for the damages, the flooding, et cetera, when this erosion occurs? So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Solt? Did I say that right? Probably not. Or Eileen, oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah.
Oh,
thank
okay,
you.
good. You got the last name.
Just two really quick things. I just want to stand in support of a revamp to the tree ordinance. It should be less than 5 acres to make any real impact on this village. We're watching too many trees come down and too many trees that are dying just because of changes happening in our environment. And then also with regard to BP, I'm just really looking for updates. You know, is there a fire department plan should something go wrong with that pipe that's carrying all that jet fuel through our neighborhood? You know, what is the status of that? And then water quality, should that pipe, when they're maintaining it or changing it or whatever they're going to do, because we don't know what they're going to do to that pipe, is that something that, you know, who's going to pay for that if we have a water quality issue for the whole area of us, a lot of us here in the village that are on a well? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that will close public comments. We're going to move on to reports and communications from the president and other officers. Oh, I'm sorry, we moved the workshop up. So now we're moving on to O1, Lakota Group Heritage Park Master Plan presentation. Lakota Group here to give us the presentation? Yes, no?
I'm a resident here for many years, and I'd like to make a few comments,
What's
please.
that? Oh, are we still in public comment?
I've been here 52 years
Sir?
now in the
Sir?
area.
Can you state your name for me? Because you didn't sign in to speak, but I
Pardon me?
can, you can speak.
So, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This
It's okay.
is my neighbor, he's hard of hearing.
That's okay.
He doesn't understand the process.
That's okay. It's
Pardon
totally
me.
okay. I just need his name.
I said it, so this is Tony DeCrocius,
Can you spell
and
his
then
name?
your address.
Okay. I was to the doctor today, and they took out part of the hearing aid out of my ear, so I'm helpless on the hearing aspect. But I've been here 52 years now. I was probably the first people on the part of that easement where the creek goes in back of my house. And for 52 years, we've not had a big problem, and they've walked it. And I say to you, do not trust corporate people. They only will do what they're forced to do. But they are obligated to monitor that line. But what I heard is they want 50-foot easement through there, which is, I think, as wide as this room. So how many trucks do you want to go through the property? How many of those do you want back there, and have who's going to monitor security over there? And it's a little crazy, but I think there should be a compromise. They've been walking it for all these years. I don't see why they have to have it monitored, to have drones or something coming overhead. I offer to them, I'm 86, I offer to walk that with them and monitor the line, and I know it shouldn't take a hell of a long time. I can walk a couple of miles without a problem. My other issue that I was thinking of as I walked in here, that 143rd, anyone who thinks that is appropriate is crazy. It is not for the community. It's not for the betterment of the community. Someone's getting a pocketbook of cash for doing some of this. And it's something that your sign says community, nature, and harmony. I think you people better think about that.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to O1, Lakota Group, Heritage Park Master Plan presentation.
Hi, good evening. Brett, are you going to share it, or should I?
You want me to man the computer?
I can either do it. I've got it either on here or... I've also got it on my laptop here, but.
Is everybody ready for Halloween coming up? Here we go.
Thanks, Brett.
Oh, so close. Starting to lose people. And I thought we'd be out of here by 8. Don't leave, guys. We've got stuff to report.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
You
Brett.
want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. My name is Kevin Clark. I'm a principal and director of design with the Lakota Group. We're Chicago-based landscape architects, planners, and I'm just excited to be talking about Heritage Park tonight. And, you know, we were brought in and asked to re-envision the master plan for Heritage Park. You know, you guys have an awesome asset out here. There's been a lot of work done, and there's a lot of activity, and I'm always super impressed when I come out here and how many people are here walking around enjoying it. We were asked to kind of look at a program that's on that south portion of it, that's just north of the building here, and just re-envision how all of these elements work. And the main things that we were asked about, and every time you start a project, what's the program? A stage or an amphitheater, kind of combined, event lawns, the idea that we can get the Veterans Memorial out here, an architectural water feature, maybe those being combined, you'll see that idea. Some pavilions, shelter, shade, and a couple bathroom buildings. And then how does all of that work together? We have a recreational component, we have soccer being played, so that's kind of that other component that's out there now. So making sure that we're able to keep that or even expand that if necessary, at least in the short term. So as we look at this, and this is the preferred plan that has been brought forth from the Parks and Rec Committee, and we've had a number of meetings. We started out with a lot of ideas, and we winnowed it down to this plan that you see in front of you. And I'll walk through the big components of it, and we have some enlargements so people can see a little bit better on some of the key areas. But the big things here that I wanted to note, when you start out, you want to have a framework. To me, you have all these components, but you need the relationships to work. You need them to make sense together. And that starts with circulation. You just recently built parking along the ring road, and you built a new parking lot down here. Those kind of tell me, okay, you've got all of this access from a lot of different places to get to different parts of the park. That's great. Now let's think about where things should be in relationship to that. So as I think about, say, let's start with the Veterans Memorial, want to make sure that's proximate to parking, right? that's a lot of seniors coming, a lot of people coming for events, want to make sure that it's really easy to get to and we have access to it, right? So when we started thinking about that southern portion there, we're showing the idea of a Veterans Memorial adjacent to a shelter and a bathroom building, adjacent to this architectural water feature, this idea that those things can come together in a space. You don't just put them there, you think about the arrival. And so as you look at that parking lot and how people would arrive through a space, there's a whole landscape component to that. So as you see, we've developed a way for people to walk into the space. Maybe there's a gateway, there's a sign, there's landscape that you walk through. You come into that circular Veterans Memorial, and that would be, you know, a granite wall. Our idea is maybe that you can have a water component off the back side of it. Maybe it's just water spilling off that leads you to a water feature where there's, you know, jets coming out of the ground. That could be enjoyed by families, that can be enjoyed and part of that kind of as a whole. And maybe a little bridge component that goes over it. And obviously we want to be adjacent to bathrooms and shelters and seating, and that's what we're showing there, is anchoring that space. It's a pavilion with a bathroom and some seating that would be underneath that pavilion. So that whole idea there would anchor that southern portion of the park and be adjacent to the parking lot that was just completed recently. That's one big piece of it. Now, you can see that walkway that comes through there. We're calling that the promenade. That connects all the way north-south through the site to the gateway at the active portion of the park on the north side. So to me, that's a really important connection through there, a tree-lined promenade with seating along it that kind of bisects the site, but also gets you closer to all of these different use zones. So you can get to the Veterans Memorial, you can get to the amphitheater, you can get to a stage building, you can get to restrooms, you can get to the soccer fields or the flex recreation fields, or all of those components are really adjacent to that walkway, but it connects all the way through. There's also a loop system or multiple loop systems of walks that go all the way around the site. I see people walking out here every time I'm here. And so to me, we want to foster that. We want to make sure that we have that as we build upon the rest of the park, and that we have that as an organizational thing, and that people are getting to different parts of this, because there's a passive recreation and there's an active recreation. So this could be for seniors walking or people that are enjoying themselves and then going to sit at benches or other places of the park within that landscape. The landscape's super important. You guys have a lot of open space in town. You put a premium on it. We want to lean into that here. I think we can build upon what you have, partly by creating different landscapes and different zones. There's shade trees, there's ornamental trees, but there's also the idea, and like not just trees within lawn, but also the idea that you can bring in some of that native landscape. You can bring in native plants, native prairie. And those things also decrease the amount of mowing that has to be done. I'm sure the person that's mowing out here gets done on one end and then just goes back to where they started and they do it again. There's a lot of grass to mow. So if we can take some of that out of it and create something that maybe is educational, more sustainable, and beautiful to create different zones, we just show some of those images here of how the park can encompass all of those elements in one place. But if you maybe go to the next slide where we talk about the stage building and the amphitheater. A big component of this is thinking about a stage building and having those kind of program spaces and the events that you guys have, and maybe even beyond what you do now. And so that stage that's located to the north really takes advantage of a little topography that's out there. There's a little hill. We can build an amphitheater into that topography. We can have the stage facing toward the south, toward this building, toward that hill. But one thing is we don't want it to feel like there's the back of a stage building along the ring road. So what you'll notice there is we've pulled it off the ring road and created what I would call an entry plaza. That's a space that's flexible. That space, you can have movable seating, you can have a pergola, you could even have a backstage area where you can have a smaller band or performance happening, or that's the place where there's awards given out, the Girl Scouts are there. So it's a really flexible space with a little bit of landscape, a little bit of seating, and still vehicular access for unloading and loading of equipment and all those things that happen when you have a stage building. So we're implying there that you have removable bollards or something to be able to allow vehicles to get in there on those zones. And then also, and it's lined up with that existing gateway that you guys have on the north side. So really not ignoring what's here, but building upon that character, building upon how it works now. And maybe we're even implying that we could slow vehicles down and make sure with either a change of paving or a little speed table that we can get cars to go slow through the site and not be speeding around the ring road. So this idea that the stage isn't a backside, it's an entry plaza, that's a use zone, you've got the amphitheater in front of it, and then proximate bathroom building and pavilion off to the side on the east there. That could be used both for when you have the events, if you have a performance happening at the stage, and on Saturday or Sunday mornings when there's soccer games going on and people are here, they have a restroom and a place with a little bit of shelter and shade right by the soccer fields. And we have a few images of what, just character images. Look, this is still master plan level. There's absolutely a lot of design to be done to get to that final character, but showing you what, that amphitheater could look like, what the pavilion architecture could be, playing off of the existing kind of gateway architecture that you have. And then, the idea of just multiple types of seating and shade and materials as we get into it that will make this a rich and really vibrant park space that invites people and has a little bit of something for everybody. And I think we had a few images of the, when we were talking about the Veterans Memorial and that water feature, the idea that this could be, an architectural feature, not a kid's playground, not something with all the plastic things spilling water out, something that has an appearance that is more a higher quality and can really work with that Veterans Memorial and the elements that would be a part of it. And then again, the idea of the pavilion and some of the seating and other character that might be a part of that whole area of the park. I think that's my water ski version of it. I didn't want to take a ton of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions, talk about it. But I appreciate your time as well tonight.
Are you going to stay for the portion of the agenda where it actually comes up?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on the workshop? I just had one. The pictures you just showed that had the pavilion on it, is that the actual pavilion itself?
No, these are just character images as we start to get into what it might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions right now? No? All right. Well, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to go back up to J, reports and communications from president and other officers. Village Manager Joe Baber. I screw that up every single time. Village Joe. Village People Joe, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An informational meeting was held on October 15th regarding the proposed 143rd Street road widening project. About 45 residents were in attendance at the young school. Additionally, factual information can be obtained on the village's website. On Thursday, staff attended the Will County Board meeting regarding a rezoning request for properties located at approximately 159th and Cedar. The applicant was requesting a change from commercial industrial zoning. The village had objected to the zoning change request. The Will County Board then voted unanimously to deny the zoning request change. Also, the events department is working on putting the Veterans Day packages together. We are still collecting donations from individuals and businesses. Staff will be bringing to deliver the packages on Veterans Day, November 11th, and we'd love for the board to help if any are available. Details will follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Village Trustees. Trustee Mason?
I have nothing to report tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Stylen?
Thank you. Today, Trustee Consolino and I had met with BP, and I'd like to give an update on that. And so the purpose of that meeting was to really get an idea of what they are thinking and planning. And they said that they had signed agreements from several of the property owners to go ahead and clear some of the trees on their property. And so since the property owners have signed an agreement and they have an agreement, we're not going to interfere with that. What we did ask of them is to submit a site development plan for a permit. So once they submit that plan, then we will review it. And in the meantime, we're going to have Trustee Mason and our arborist, Jen Vittori, walk with them to identify the trees that they're talking about removing. And also, we would like to have a meeting with the subcommittee, and we've requested that it be on the next agenda for the official appointment of the subcommittee to review what BP plans to do, and then we'll go from there. So that's what we have talked about with the pipeline. On another note, on events notes, we had a fishing derby a couple weekends ago, and it was a beautiful day, lots of fun, and but not a lot of fish. So we're not so sure why it was. Some people thought it was the barometric pressure, but we do know that that pond gets people fishing there daily, and it's my understanding, and not to steal any thunder from Parks, but Jen Vittori is going to talk to IDNR about restocking that. But it was a great fun day, and thank you village staff, events department, Parks, EMA, and all the volunteers that were there. The Community Development Committee is currently working with the event staff for the calendar for next year. And I do know that we're going to have 2 fishing derbies for next year, and many of the current events will be repeated. If you have ideas or suggestions, now is the time to submit them, and submit them to the events department. This is a busy time of the year for fall. Some people say that Homer Glen owns the fall. We have a trunk or treat coming up this Saturday. You might be seeing 2 signs around the community. The village's official trunk or treat is here at Heritage Park on Saturday from 3 to 5, and I believe the township is having one on their road district property on Tuesday the 29th. So not to be confused. Let's hope for some good weather. Trick-or-treating hours are 2 to 7:30 as a reminder. And also veterans, we have a veterans event. We will be honoring the veterans at the Kono Farm on November 3rd, which is a Sunday from 12 to 3. It's another great way to have the veterans all come out, and we do have a couple activities that raise funds, and funds from those, whatever's raised at that event, does get used for the veterans packages that are going to be delivered on Veterans Day. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reinders.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. I want to report that I am very happy that myself and Trustee Stylen have met with Attorney George Arnold to put together a 501(c) so that we can actually start fundraising for our parks and our trails. Once this foundation is created, it will really open up a lot of doors for us. We will be working with our grant writer, and this will allow our grant writer not only to go after the government funds, but also private funds, corporate funds. We really need this for our parks and our trails. Our parks are getting older. There's a lot of equipment that needs to be replaced. And, we're a small village. We just don't have millions and millions of dollars coming in. So this is going to be a great revenue source for us. So I'm really excited about that. And we're hoping that within the next couple months that we can put this together and start to move forward. Also, I would just like to take the time to thank Kevin from the Lakota Group. Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for all your hard work that you did on this. I know it wasn't easy dealing with all of us on the Parks and Recs Committee, but you did a great job, and we're looking forward to continuing on with this process and getting this project off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Village Clerk?
I got a lot. No. So I just wanted to give a couple shout outs to the local schools, students. Congratulations to the following.
Homer Junior High baseball team for taking third place at the IESA Class 3A State. Homer 33C Cross Country for placing third out of 14 teams at the Westview Wildcat Invitational at the end of September. Homer Glen resident Zach Skripik for making it to IHSA State for boys golf. The LTHS boys golf were also conference champs. LTHS girls golf team qualified for state and placed 10th overall. This Friday is the LTHS varsity football team, and they will be playing against Homewood Flossmoor High School for the potential to make it into the playoffs. The girls tennis team had 2 state qualifiers. This Friday is also the LTHS varsity boys soccer team. They will be playing for the regional championship. Girls volleyball was the #1 seed for sectionals. Girls cross country were the conference champs. And congratulations to all levels of the Homer Stallions for making the River Valley playoffs. In other news, as a reminder, the last day to file nomination papers for the 2025 consolidated primary is Monday, October 28th. Our offices will be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Monday. Also, early voting for the 2024 general election is taking place at Homer Township. It will continue to take place for the rest of this week from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. and also next week, Monday, October 28th through Friday, November 1st, from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The 2024 general election will take place Tuesday, November 5th. If you have any questions regarding where your polling place is, please call the Village Hall at 708-301-0632 for assistance. Thank you. Thank you. Village Attorney?
Yes, I'm pleased to report that last week our law office hosted an informational presentation for all the residents of the Village of Homer Glen, so we can share with you all what steps the village was taking to defend against the actions taken by the Will County Department of Transportation in acquiring the village property along 143rd Street. A couple of things came out of this. First and foremost, we made it very, very clear to the public and to everybody here today. I want to rehash the fact that every member of the Board of Trustees here, this entire village is 100% against the expansion at 143rd Street. Whatever information people are receiving that somehow these trustees or even the trustees that are not present somehow are for this expansion is complete nonsense. Every person here in this village is 100% unified against that 143rd Street expansion. What we did as a law firm is we shared some of the defenses, not all of them, but some of the defenses that the village will be taking in order to stop or at least put the brakes on, at least temporarily, some of the efforts by Will County to acquire village-owned property by way of eminent domain. We touched on what eminent domain is and what it isn't. What we can share with you now is that moving forward, we've regrouped, we've huddled up, we've talked a little bit more about other steps that we can take to strengthen our positions. So what I'm going to ask you all is just to sit tight. We're going to be providing more notices to you. We don't want to announce everything that we plan on doing by way of our overall strategy, but you will be learning and you will be hearing from us shortly, but in the form of notices, special meetings, and other matters will be disclosed to you. And we ask that you attend and listen and see what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Public safety officials? Hello? We're going to say no. Do you have anything to report? No, okay. All right, that leaves me. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch base on from some of the public comments today. I agree that our ordinance for our tree ordinance needs to change. It was presented to the not this board, but the previous board once about changing it from 5 acres to 2.5 acres, and the board at the time voted it down. And I think the reason they voted it down is because they were confused. Because after that meeting, I was the clerk at the time, I had addressed each trustee, the ones that I actually could speak to, and they all agreed that they misunderstood what was being presented and put before them, and they would in fact have changed it if they understood what was going on. And in fact, when this board came about, we talked about it briefly and we were going to bring it back again. So it may come before this board again, and I believe the Environment Committee had brought that forward to the board previously and plan on doing it again. So that's one thing. There were some comments made about, you know, getting the residents to trust the village again, and some residents feel unrepresented. I want to touch base on that with a little bit, because I'm not sure where we failed the residents on that, because we We saved the trees on Hadley Road. You know, we fought this, on 159th Street, they wanted to change ag and commercial to industrial. We fought hard and we won that battle. We're fighting the 143rd expansion that has been created almost 20 years ago and has been brought before this board as an impossible task, and we got the county board to stop it, then it was vetoed, and we're still continuing to fight, and we have very good attorneys fighting this, as he just said. We have a strong case that we feel now we have standing, and we're going to keep moving forward on that. So we have a very strong conservation ordinance, and I mean, I remember a couple of times I was fighting for long-eared bats that I didn't even know existed. I mean, we are doing everything that we can to save trees and save the wildlife, and that's what this community is about, and you're right, it's community, nature, and harmony. Speaking of BP, not only did Trustee Stylin and Trustee Consolino meet with BP, but so did myself, Trustee Mason, Village Manager Joe Baber, and Brett Westcott. We met with them today as well. We are doing the best we can to fight for these trees. I don't want the trees taken down. I don't know where that information is coming from. Again, there's always, every time we try to do something, there's always the opposition saying that we're trying to do something that we're not. I believe we had a great conversation with BP today, and they agreed that they were going to work with us. We even talked about adding more habitat, like a butterfly garden, or for the monarchs, or beautifying the land for trees they take out, they have to replace. So we are moving forward on that. As Trustee Stylin stated, there are some residents who do have contracts, current contracts, with BP to remove those trees. We are not going to get involved or in the middle of or between a resident and BP who do want their trees taken down. That's not for us. That's not our place. That's not something we would want to do. That would be government overreach, I believe. So I just want to make it very clear that this board up here is trying to help the residents along the BP pipeline, and we are doing the best we can to save those trees. So I don't know where the misinformation is coming from, but I ask anyone who's getting any other information to call me directly. Don't listen to anybody else that's telling you something different, okay? Public comment is closed at this time, but please, you have my phone number. You can call me any day during the week, just not on the weekends through the month of October, okay?
Misinformation. So, you know, we can't comment. We can't, it's not like you're allowing us to come back and say where this misinformation is coming.
I am. You can call me. You could come to the Village Hall. We can talk anytime. We just want to get through. You can, even if you're staying to the end of the meeting, I'll meet you right after.
I have a petition here.
Yeah, which you sent to me, sir.
It's going against what you're saying, so.
Petition that's going against what I'm saying. Okay, well, we could talk after the meeting if you're still here. All right, we're going to move on to consent agenda. Number 1, consider for approval the accounts payable for the period of October 11th, 2024 through October 24th, 2024 in the amount of $1,714,039.15. And number 2, consider for the approval of the treasurer's report of cash and investments for the period ending July 31st, 2024 in the amount of $47,840,682.16. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Stylin. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Stylin.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Motion carries. L1, legislation and action items. Consider for approval an ordinance granting a special use permit to allow a swimming pool to be located in the side yard for certain real property located in the R5 Single Family Residential District at 14509 Mallard Drive, Homer, Glen, Illinois. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Mason. Trustee Reinders, you have the floor.
I'm actually, the Plan Commission approved this, they looked over this, and they had no problem with it. And we've done this before where there's people had no backyards, or their backyard was in the shape where they wouldn't be able to fit the pool. So, I mean, I have no problem with this at all.
Trustee Mason?
I looked at it as well. The poor people have minimal backyard, but they have ample side yard. And we've done it in the past, and I don't see why we wouldn't let them do what they need to on their property.
Trustee Stylin?
Same.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders.
Aye.
Trustee Mason.
Aye.
Trustee Stylin.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 2, consider for approval an ordinance adopting the Lacona Group master plan for Heritage Park. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Reinders, is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Mason. Trustee Reinders?
This is something that we've been working on for the last year. And we've made a lot of changes. Times have changed, people's visions have changed, and this is something that we feel very strongly about. We've listened to the residents, we've listened to our veterans, and we've taken all of that into consideration in actually putting this revision together. So I believe that this revision is going to be great for our park. It's going to open up a lot of amenities with the amphitheater and with the Veterans Memorial, the bathrooms. We're adding more soccer fields. So I think there's going to be a little bit for everybody in this plan. So I'm all for it.
Trustee Mason?
I agree with Trustee Reiners. I've looked at this multiple times. We are starting to make some progress. I think it's beautiful. It's not so far off of what we originally had planned. The Veterans Memorial moves over slightly with the additional parking and bringing it, as the Lakota group had spoke on earlier, it brings more residents into the areas that we need to, and it's a beautification.
Trustee Steilen?
Yes, I really like the change to the back of the amphitheater. I thought that was nice. I do have some questions. I'm sorry that I didn't ask them during the workshop.
Would you like Mr. I'm sorry, I
Yes,
forgot Kevin's last name.
if you don't mind. So for the soccer fields, because the soccer fields are really viewed temporary, because
Yep.
that wasn't in our original concept.
Right.
And ideally, they'll be somewhere else, I think, someday. So what you're doing is easy to restore back, or what?
Absolutely. I also, we talked about that at the committee level as well. We do see it as, if we could find a better place, that'd be ideal. As of now, we're maintaining what we have. We have shown one additional field where kids can age up, but to me, that's lawn with, it's flat lawn with lines on it, right? So over time, it can just be ultimately kind of that pastoral park feel and flexible kind of recreation for kids to run around and play in just a natural way.
Okay, and if you don't mind if I ask a question, it pertains to the next item, but, so we had a plan, and I'm comparing when you were doing your presentation, that's why I requested this. This was like an original plan, and I just wanted to see how things have changed. Are you able to, is this like starting from scratch with engineering, or is there like some use of what we have already paid for, or how's that going to work?
I would think that it would be a new effort.
Okay.
It's not throwing everything out, but you've done some changes to the park. We're locating things in certain places for a reason. There's a water line out there. We want to have bathrooms off the water line. We want to have the water feature in the Veterans Memorial. So we've done those things intentionally to make it easier and better and less expensive for engineering. But if we were to move forward with a design, I would want a civil engineer on my team that's going to help us create what we have designed and what is envisioned.
Okay. And so then my other comments are, there's only 3 of us trustees here. There's 3 that are absent. And I'm just a little bit leery because this is like the first time seeing this plan to make a decision I mean, that's a half of our board almost, that they're not here. And I would really like to make sure that they have some inclusion.
May I ask a question, Madam Mayor?
Sure.
So I'm all about using what we pay for, and I've said this all along, and you've just indicated that the pipeline that is there is going to be usable, and you've worked your renderings around basically the features and the topography and whatnot that is already set up. So I guess my question is, because I would like to stay as close to, and I like what you've presented, and I've seen it, and I actually seen it a week or 2 back and went through it. And bottom line, I don't want to get so far off that we're wasting money that we spent priorly.
Sure.
So do you feel at this point that you've incorporated everything that you possibly can to salvage and we can continue to use, I'm looking at you, young lady.
Absolutely.
So we can continue to use what we've already put in play?
Yes. That's at this level, yes, we feel very confident that we have done that.
Okay, thank you.
May I? So when we were talking about redesigning all of this, the most important thing was the water and the sewer. And moving things around, what we tried to do is we tried to move them closer so that it would be less expensive and less engineering, and try to find a way to build off of the sewer line and the water line. That was the most important thing, and that is what we've done with this plan. So moving forward, we also do have some grant money. We have grant money for bathrooms, Brent, if I may. We have money for bathrooms already, so it was just a matter of putting them in place. And the other thing that we were thinking about too was, it was the accessibility for the veterans. We wanted to make sure that they weren't having to walk a far distance. The whole purpose of this parking lot here was to take care of if we lost any of the road out on 151st, plus be able to provide parking and accessibility for the veterans. That was the most important thing, because I really do believe that the pavilion and the Veterans Memorial together is really going to draw a lot of people. So that was what was really important.
Yeah, and that's exactly what my point was, because we put the parking lot there for the accessibility. We moved it over slightly because it's closer to the water, things on that order. I just want to make sure that we're incorporating everything that we possibly can in order to save the residents money.
Yeah, and another thing too, we were one of the things we're actually also looking into is if it's going to be more feasible for us to drill a well versus using the Illinois American Water. So those are all the things that when the engineering comes into play, that, that we'll be looking at, because we all know Illinois American Water is so expensive. And even though our water feature that we're proposing would be recirculating. Thank you. Recirculating type of feature, it would still be important to see what the usage would be versus if we had a well versus using Illinois American. So I think we've really looked at a lot of things and covered a lot of bases on this, and tried to make it as user-friendly as we possibly could. Incorporating the trails more. And Kevin had touched upon the fact of all the grass. This will help Jen immensely with her cutting in the park. By us adding more trees and more landscaping, that's less cutting that she has to do. So, and with the additional soccer field as well. So, and that was another thing. One of our members is very into soccer, and the soccer has just exploded over the last year, even though we never really meant for Heritage Park to be overrun with soccer. But until we get to that point in time where we can put another field or another sports area somewhere else, then this is what we have to work with, because we do have such a need for it.
Well, that leads in Trustee Stylin's question about it being temporary, because of course we have other properties and some of that could be looked at in the future. And soccer is very minimally invasive as far as returning back to its natural state.
And we felt that working with Kevin, he was very much on top of our vision. He actually worked very well with us. When we talked about trying to keep the charm of the park, trying to make sure that there was enough amenities that were going to meet the needs of all the residents, that was one thing, like the walkways. So we tried to really nail every single thing down that would meet the needs of someone. So I think they did a great job, and that's really why, moving forward, we wanted to move forward with them into the next phase of the architectural design and the engineering portion of it, because they knew so much about what we wanted to do with this. So
I have another question.
Okay.
So when I looked at are these trees that are in here between the soccer fields, are those currently there, or are you removing trees and replanting?
Those are there now.
Okay.
We're keeping those trees as they are.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of it currently looks almost exactly the same as the original plan, except for you've added some walkways and things like that and moved a few things up in the back of the amphitheater.
Added a lot more landscaping, a lot more trees. Yeah, so that, we wanted to be able to create that separation, because if you're in the soccer fields and there's an event going on, either by the main stage, or if you see that circle in the middle, there, you know, we were thinking about kites, you know, where we fly our kites. That would be an area. So if you had something that was going on by the amphitheater, you still could have something going on in that other section. So the more landscaping we put, the better off it would be, you know, more separated.
Right. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, my questions don't really have to do with like the park itself. Mine is just more like legal questions, because I'm trying to go through some paperwork up here, because my packet was not right, but we're, so I just have a couple questions. Was, Joe, and this is more, I guess, for you guys, or, was this an RFQ when we picked Lakota Group? It was an RFQ or was it a bid?
We did an RFP. So we had,
RFP, I'm sorry, yeah.
yeah, it was an RFP that went out for, it was a competitive process, and we selected the Lakota Group over the other firms, yes.
Did the attorney have a chance to review the contract?
I have not, ma'am.
You have not? Okay.
For
I
the-
usually feel
so,
comfortable.
Just really quick, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't mean to
No, no.
interrupt you. There's two separate items,
I see that, but.
right? This is just adopting this as the master plan for Heritage Park. We've already paid and we're entered into a contract with Lakota Group for this design, right?
Right.
So this is the final outcome of that, right? This is just an ordinance approving this and adopting this as the master plan for the park. And then the next item is a separate, that's a separate thing. That's a separate discussion with Lakota Group and moving forward with them as the design and engineering into the next step of this.
Right, I understand that. I just didn't have the second part in my packet.
Gotcha.
So the clerk just gave me it. So I just wanted to make sure, if you guys can just give me 2 seconds to just review this with the attorney real fast to make sure he has everything he needs before anything else takes place. Is this everything that you need to move forward? Because this is for adopting the master plan. This one is for providing architect. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
For the adoption of the master plan, we wouldn't need to see any of the
Right.
paperwork, ma'am, because that's already been paid for by way of another contract. But to name them and to appoint them as the landscape architect and engineer, what have you, for the design, for going forward with this thing, we need to review that contract.
That's why I was confused, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
didn't see this part. Okay.
So the first one would be a go, the second one should be, I would recommend being tabled, yes, trustee Mason.
Is that okay? You feel comfortable with that? Okay, now that I have everything in front of me. Thank you. Sorry. Does anybody else have anything else? Trustee Styling?
Yeah, I have another question. So now we have the past plan,
Yes.
and then we will have this plan. And so before, I mean, this, we're going to say we want this plan if we vote for it tonight. But if we chose to go to, if we don't do the next item with choosing the Lakota Group, could we end up having to
Be in the same
in
situation.
another situation where we're replanning something? That's just my question.
Go ahead.
That may happen, but it's doubtful. Lakota Group is very reputable, and I don't foresee any major issues with working with the legal department and coming and reviewing their agreement and making whatever revisions are necessary.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, sorry. I just get lost there sometimes. Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Motion carries. I feel better now that I have it in front of me. Moving on to, I'm going to go over here now. L3, consider a motion approving the Lakota Group as the firm to provide architectural design and engineering services for the approved master plan for Heritage Park. As we just discussed, someone was going to motion to table.
I'd like to make a motion to table.
Trustee Stylen?
And
is
I
there a
will second.
Trustee Mason, is there any discussion on tabling?
No, I think we should table it pending the attorney review for the contract.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, consider approval on ordinance amending Homer Glen Village Code, Chapter 10, Section 10-6, membership relating to standing committees. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Mason, have any comments?
I don't. It's pretty cut and dry. Nothing I can think of at this time.
Trustee Reinders?
No, I haven't have anything.
Trustee Stylen?
Just that The committees are a recommending body, so if we do have a staff member that's a chair or they're on a committee, they're still recommending to us and they're not, so I'm okay with it.
I think the only change that was we can have a committee member that's a staff member that doesn't live in the village of Homer Glen, right?
I think that was the only change.
And the
yeah.
chair, but the chair was last time.
Yep.
Oh, that's this time? Okay. Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. That one's done. We're going to move on to consider for approval the mayor's appointments for Homer Festival Committee. But I want to read all the names, but I don't have that either.
Mike Carlson.
Oh, I see.
Tony
Okay.
Drabeck, Ethan
Thanks,
Fialko.
Kurt, I got it from here. Thank you. The mayor's appointments to Homer Festival Committee appointments would be Mike Carlson, Tony Drabeck, Ethan Fialko, Bill Foster, Mark Gowan, Paul McGarry, Jay Rhodey, Sue Stylen, and John Walters. And the committee is chaired by Village Events Coordinator Dan Waddick. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Trustee
second.
Reinders, Trustee Mason. Any discussion?
No?
No? No discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Reinders?
Aye.
Trustee Mason?
Aye.
Trustee Stylen?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on to old business. Discussion regarding updating the current village standard operating procedure number 13, social media policy.
I'll make that motion.
And I will second.
Wait, we're in old business, so I don't think there's a
Oh,
motion.
it's just discussion.
Yeah, it's just discussion. All
Okay.
right,
Just discussion.
who's going first? Rose, or Trustee Reinders, since you...
Well, what we were supposed to do is we were supposed to actually look, we were supposed to get some ideas from what some of the other villages were doing in regards to this. I still believe that with the way social media is today, I think we need to keep our page private, no comments.
Social media is gross.
Oh, it's horrible.
Trustee Mason, do you have anything?
This came up in A&F. We voted on it 4-0. It's come up a couple different times. I know that our staff gets inundated with irrelevant correspondence. Sometimes it doesn't even pertain to anything at all. And I just don't want to be bogged down with that type, so.
Trustee Stylen?
And this isn't we haven't updated the policy yet. This is just giving approval to go ahead and review and work on, and then our communications will bring this back to us.
Yeah, I agree that the comments on our social media don't pertain to what the actual post is, and then it kind of goes sideways, and there's a lot of false information that residents put on there. So if there is something we post, it doesn't mean that we're restricting what residents can say or respond to our post. They can, we're still available by phone and email, and there's still other ways to communicate with us. So the only way that to stop the rhetoric on Facebook on our social media page is to turn off the comments on that. So again, this is just discussion. There's no vote on anything. Was that the end of that discussion? Is there any other old business?
Yes. No, old business. I just wanted everyone to know that I have walked that BP pipeline. I have looked at the trees. We did have a good meeting today with them. Trustee Stylen and myself actually walked the entire length, hoping not to get shot on some of it. But bottom line, I think there was good points brought up. Sue and I, or Trustee Stylen and I talked about today. Some of it was about the maintenance and the floodplain, and I hadn't thought about the well waters, so that's another good point. We want to preserve our trees, and we have already started the process by meeting with BP. Due to Open Meetings Act, we had to separate. That's why the mayor and myself were together. That's why Trustee Stylen and Consolino were together. BP is open at this point, but we're always skeptical. They did talk about beautification and grassing and seeding and planting additional trees in that area as well. We don't want it to be an eyesore. We had brought up additional concerns, and I think they were very receptive today. So I just wanted everyone to know that. I know you guys haven't had the chance to meet with BP yet. I do agree with Trustee Stylen about a subcommittee, and I trust the opinion of Mr. Buckley as well. I think he cares. He lives there. He is a civil engineer, so we value his opinion as well. That's it.
I'm going to piggyback on that. We did agree to have a committee. It was just we were going to meet with the BP first.
Correct.
Discuss it today, and then appoint the committee after this. So again, the miscommunication of no subcommittee. Again, not sure where that came from, but we do plan on having one, and there will be one. I think that was it on that. Okay.
The last thing I wanted to say is I've also, as the mayor had mentioned earlier, I have planned to walk again the entire property and with our Parks Department and our engineers so we can elaborate and collaborate on that as well. And they've already indicated that maybe in some areas we can do some upcutting versus removing trees, but we haven't locked anything into stone at this point. Thank you.
And we will be following all of our own ordinances in this matter.
Correct.
Okay. Any new business?
I have a couple new business.
Trustee Steinle?
Yeah, for new business, we have a grant writer, and we've talked about grants, and about a month ago, I think, the mayor and I met with the sports groups, and they came up with a wish list. I'm wondering if we could give that wish list to the grant writer. Let's make use of her while we have her. Okay, I have it here, and so I'll give you a copy when we're done. And then I mentioned this at A&F, I don't think I've mentioned it. Here is that I'd like to have a historic commission. And then the other item I'd like to mention is about a year ago, I mentioned, we talked about community and nature and harmony it's on our CL, it's been our slogan for a long time, and we had a branding project. When we were talking with BP, and if they go to our website and they see Know Your Home, I don't think that they see the community and nature and harmony, and I would like to do something to bring that back to the forefront, because that's who we are. And so whatever we can do to do that, that's it.
Great, I agree. Okay, any more new business? Nope. We already did the workshop? All right, we will be entering executive session for the purpose of regarding pending litigation and personnel. Is there a motion to go in executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee
And I
Reiner,
will
Trustee
second.
Mason, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? All right, take a 5-second break, or 5-minute break.